4, 3, 2. We're live. You are live. It told me I'm live and I'm alive and living.
Use my backdrop here.
Fix your backdrop. I want your backdrop to be half of a green curtain and then just like wood yellow in the back. Perfect.
Like PBS in here. And we can even like bring the green, like more green.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, now we're professional.
Oh, I like it. And also I want you to always be sleeveless so we could see the tats, which tell a story that, have you ever told the story of them all somewhere?
No, I don't think I've told the story of all of them.
All right. Well, I'm not going to go there, but someday I think you should. I think you should do like a special for like paid subscribers, like take them through your whole body that you feel appropriate sharing, or don't.
Your body is a wonderland. Yeah.
Of ink. Yeah. When was your first one? That's all I'll ask. Your first tattoo.
I was 16.
Oh, wow. Younger than my daughter. My daughter's about that age. She's getting, she's trying to catch up to you. I don't approve of it.
Oh, well, you know, why would you? You're her dad. My parents didn't approve of mine either. So my mom likes him now, though. She's cool now. She's chill now.
I'm so happy to see you. Thank you for doing this with me. I've got a bunch of questions for you. I thought I could do like a kind of 100 days-ish with you, but there's just so much relevant stuff to ask you that happened yesterday. So I just want to ask you, though, I feel like the broader question is, and you've been covering this really good, is the grift, is the scam, is the corruption? I feel like you were the one who tweeted or posted about, you think this plane is a big deal. You know how much money he's made on like crypto and meme coins? And I don't even understand all that stuff, but how sometimes people will say in defense of Donald Trump the first time and this time, and he just apparently announced he's giving up his $400,000 salary as president, and he's losing money by leaving his businesses and being president. Nothing could be further from the truth. How bad is it?
Well, like we saw inklings of this way back, right? Like when he was first running for president, we checked out his real estate. We found out that 84% of real estate transactions done under Trump's name in Florida were with Russians. And then that moved into like the inaugural where $50 million went missing and people were buying tickets through straw donations. One guy actually pled guilty and was exiled, deported, Mr. Vanderswan, who worked for Skadden Arps during the Mueller investigation for that particular behavior. And then we had something called Michael Cohen's Essential Consulting, which was a firm he set up, which was also a slush fund. People would give $500,000, $1 million, a lot of Russians, Blavatnik and stuff like that to get access to the president. And we had joked a lot about essential consulting. Can I swear on here?
Of course.
Essential consulting. It's fucking essential. That was our tagline. And we even had a little logo for it and everything. Then we got into the pardons at the end of his term, where he was basically selling pardons and getting cash that way from people who wanted to curry favor.
Remember when Clinton did that, or was accused of doing that with Mark Rich? It was like the biggest scandal of that era outside of all the rest of the scandals for Clinton, but certainly that was a big one. But yeah, nothing matters anymore.
And we knew that when he got into office again, if he did get into office again, and everybody warned about this, including Ketanji Brown Jackson during the immunity arguments, and Sonia Sotomayor too, saying that the White House will become the seat of criminality in this country if we give the president criminal immunity. People will run for office just so they can do crimes and not get in trouble for it. So now we've got any number of different ways, whether it's meme coin, whether it's a $5 million golden visa, whether it's, however he wants to sell stuff.
Dinner with him, right?
It's dinner. You can dine with him. It just costs you money. And now he's got the plane from Qatar, signed off personally by the woman who, first of all, didn't go after him for Trump University after he made a $25,000 donation to her campaign. But Pam Bondi is now signing off on this Qatari plane after being a $115,000 a month paid agent for Qatar. She actually applied and registered with the Department of Justice under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. So now we've got that, Hillary Clinton got in trouble for accepting a $425 necklace from Bangladesh, and she ended up giving it back. There's an old story where Benjamin Franklin got a snuff box from some foreign guy. He had to give that back. Jimmy Carter had to give up his peanut farm before he was going to be president. But now we've got a $400 million plane. And, that's aside from when Qatar bailed out Kushner's 666 Fifth Avenue building for him and his felonious father. And the Kushner, real estate group, and then he set up an investment fund and got $2 billion from the Saudis. So this is just all blatant corruption and plain as day out in the open. And I guess because they're not trying to hide it, I think it's somewhere in Trump's brain. He thinks, well, if the cover up's worse than the crime and I'm not covering it up, it's not a crime. I don't know.
Right.
If that's his thing, but here we are. And it's now, fortunately, the plane is like a tangible, fungible object, right? It's not like a weird meme coin or
right.
NFT or something where a lot of folks just don't kind of grasp the amount of money that's being, flowing into the Trump organization coffers from weird investments and, but sneakers, $100,000 watches, and planes we can see, and that's bad news. And so here we are. And now Chuck Schumer is finally well, I'm not going to allow any of your DOJ appointments to go forward until we get Pam Bondi in here to answer some questions about this plane. And now why they haven't been blocking all the Trump administration appointees from the very beginning is beyond me. But I guess Chuck Schumer is hearing the cries and the calls of his own party and his own base saying, please just do something. And so I think he's finally standing up and is, now that he's got a fungible tangible plane to have an issue with.
Yeah, it's a little late and questionable as to why now. Well, let's talk about all of the issues around the tariffs. You cover this every day as well for your daily podcast, Daily Beans, and I know have a lot of thoughts on it. There's been, I think, pretty good framing from the mainstream corporate media, from the Wall Street Journal to Politico, right-leaning or corporate outlets that are easy to criticize when they frame or depict these tariffs, because nobody's winning, and now he's just caved to China. What do you make of the trade war that Trump seemed to be the only person that believed in it, and now where are we with it?
It's a fire that he set so he could put it out himself.
Right.
And he's not even very good at putting it out. I mean, the tariffs for China have come down to 80%, which is still 4 times what they were. Or 3 times, 25%, 80%. I mean, I even put a video out of the old, there's an old Countries of the World song by Yakko Warner on the Animaniacs. And I was like, I have it. I have the list of all of the countries that Trump has failed to make a trade deal with, and just sang the Countries of the World by Yakko Warner as they were in 1993. So awesome. It's a joke. It's ridiculous. And it only hurts, people with pensions and 401ks. And it also hurts us in the long run, because now, even if he gets back down to 10% tariffs across the board, which is still dumb, it's not considering any particular trade with any given country. It's just a flat tariff across the board. Even if he does get back down to that, we are now seen as risky business. It's volatile. It's not somewhere you want to invest. And so along the same lines of, travel, nobody wants to do business with the United States now because of the volatility.
Certainly not to Newark, travel-wise. Are you afraid to fly? You fly a lot.
I haven't really flown that much since the inauguration, because most of my travel had to do with visiting Democrats in power in DC, or touring around. So I don't really do much travel, but I'm pretty afraid to fly, and I'm also afraid to leave the country. I don't know if I'll be able to come back. So
let's talk about that issue: immigration, ports of entry, all the self-deportation. You covered a lot of these different cases. It's hard to keep track of who's been deported and why. I think before we get to the some of the higher profile, well, I guess there are should be all high profile. You can talk about whatever ones you want. Young woman writes an essay critical of Israel, I guess, and she gets detained for months or for weeks. She was recently released. Meanwhile, the Trump is taking a plane from one of Hamas's funders. So it's kind of an interesting juxtaposition or comparison, those two right there. But what do you want to say about those who have been detained for issues regarding things they said or written, much less people being asked about, what they think on the way into the country, thought crimes at the border?
Well, the problem here is a lack of due process, right? And this is, I wrote up a whole thread, I think on November 24th, right after the election, worried about people like you and me and, friends of ours. How will Trump try to detain us without due process? And one of my biggest concerns was, man, what if he suspends habeas corpus? And then we have Stephen Mueller, Nosferatu, telling the press that the White House is considering suspending habeas corpus. But following the immigration cases, because if they take due process away from one person, they can take due process away from all of us. We've covered Rumeysa Öztürk, who you just mentioned.
Yeah, that's her name. Yeah.
Khalil Mahmoud. We've talked about Abrego Garcia and Andry Hernandez Romero and Frangel Reyes Mota. And they are representing the people who are being held in that torture prison in El Salvador without due process. And the ACLU has filed a case in Boasberg's court against the use of the Alien Enemies Act. Multiple judges, 3 have already considered the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act to be unlawful. And right now they're trying to establish a class in Judge Boasberg's court for what they call the Seacoast class. And those are all the people who are still wrongfully and unlawfully imprisoned in El Salvador. And Trump is trying to argue, well, we don't have any, they're a sovereign nation. We can't tell them what to do. Yet we flew a plane into a sovereign nation yesterday to pick up 49 white Africans to bring them back here. 59. So why can we do that to that sovereign nation, but not to El Salvador? Unless Trump is admitting he's a giant pussy and can't strong-arm Bukele in El Salvador to do what he wants. And he's even told the public, hey, I can make a phone call and have them back tomorrow, but I'm not going to do it, which has come back to bite him in the ass in a lot of these cases. And we're covering, Andy McCabe and I are covering those Alien Enemies Act cases on the Unjustified podcast in pretty good detail if you're interested.
Great place to learn more. That's a really good show with Allison and Andy McCabe. So let me ask you about all these injunctions. There's been a record amount of injunctions, courts deciding that the Trump administration has gone too far. They've got to stop, cease and desist. They can't do this thing. This week at the Supreme Court, they're going to hear a case on birthright citizenship. But more importantly, apparently it's going to have implication on whether or not lower courts can have injunctions, or whatever the word is, injunctions.
Nationwide
injunctions. I talked with con law scholar, friend of the show, Eric Siegel, about that yesterday. I wonder what your read is, how important this is. He made it seem like a very, very possibly big deal. Do you agree?
I do. And I think that the Supreme Court is going to stop lower courts from being able to initiate nationwide injunctions.
You do?
Yeah, because recently, you remember when Judge Boasberg ordered Trump to turn those planes around, and the Supreme Court came in and vacated those orders.
Right.
And said you can't have a nationwide class of people that are subject to being disappeared under the Alien Enemies Act. Those people have to file individual habeas petitions in the jurisdictions where they're being detained, meaning we're going to make it so difficult now. Each and every individual who could be subject to deportation under this proclamation has to file their own habeas petition in their own jurisdiction, and each jurisdiction can issue a jurisdiction-wide injunction. And Colorado's done that. Western District of Texas has done that. Northern District of Texas has done that. But, they seem really big on making it have to happen for individuals in certain areas and not nationwide injunctions. And so I'm concerned that they'll have another rule of the ages like they did with immunity, saying that district court judges don't have the power to issue nationwide injunctions. They can only issue injunctions over the parties to the case or their little jurisdiction.
What does that mean in real terms, in real life? for all of these organizations that are doing great work, all these lawyers that are doing great work, bringing these suits that end up in injunctions? Does that not continue? Does it continue just pared down to just the plaintiffs in the case?
Well, it could mean that, for example, with the barring with Trump trying to get rid of transgender troops in the military. At first, there was a nationwide injunction, but then the court only issued the injunction for the 6 plaintiffs who filed. And then, of course, the circuit court, which had 2 Trump appointees on the 3-judge panel, blocked that from happening during the pendency of the litigation. But I think we could see, like, for example, when the probationary employees of the federal government were like, you have to stop firing all probationary employees. Stuff like that could end. Being able to certify a class and to make those, those bans or injunctions nationwide, to say that this is unconstitutional for these people in the Southern District of Texas, but screw the rest of the country. It's going to be interesting to see how the Supreme Court meets that out. But I think that that's what they're going to do.
You've been following closely the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case, and I predicted he would be returned. I have not been right on anything I've ever predicted and have no credibility on such predictions, which is why people generally are right to come to the conclusion that the opposite of what I say is right. So what do you think? You've been covering it. It's delayed that case. I feel like the reason I felt that way is because it just felt like the kind of case that would not be leaving the front pages until I guess it kind of did. But still, the courts
Why did you think that he'd be returned? Because of what the Supreme Court ruled?
Yes, and I thought the politics of it were hurting him on an issue where he was so strong. It got so much attention, and public opinion seemed to turn against him just sending these people out without any kind of evidence or due process. So
Trump likes attention, but let's go back to that Supreme Court ruling 9-0 that they had to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia. I wrote up a whole piece on it saying this isn't as good as everyone thinks it is. They've left giant loopholes for Trump to park a Cybertruck in. For example, they said, we don't like the word effectuate, but we say the lower court can direct the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return, and that the government should have to say what they've done to try. And basically what that allows is for Kristi Noem to get up and raise her right hand and say, I've done absolutely everything I can to get him back, and I can't. And that would satisfy the Supreme Court's ruling. Do you see what I'm saying? So at some point you run into a wall where, Judge Sines or these judges can be like, you have to tell us what you've done at least. And maybe at some point they will say what they've done. And in fact, in the Abrego Garcia case, I believe that there was a memo that said, we called Bukele and he said no. So we tried, we facilitated, we did our job.
Right.
That's all we have to do, because the judge can't order Bukele to release them. And so I feel like we're going to run into a brick wall because of the Supreme Court's kind of vague ruling. And I don't think the Supreme Court will ever say to the Trump administration, you have to bring him back. They'll only say you have to do what you can. And if they raise their right hand and declare we've done what we can and we failed, that satisfies the court ruling.
Am I right to think that every time Trump signs an executive order, both he and much of the American public thinks he has just signed a law?
Yeah, I think people kind of confuse executive orders with laws. To be clear, Congress makes laws. And so executive orders are judiciable. They can be reviewed by the court. I know Trump thinks that they can't. But he's making stuff up so that he can do what he wants. And a lot of these things, he'll do what he wants. He'll shoot first and aim later, like with the taking people to El Salvador. He just quietly put them all on planes and sent them away, and then was like, oh, I can't do that? Oh, I already did. Sorry.
But that's different with one of the other issues that you've been covering as well as anybody else with the federal workforce and firings, because you can't shoot now. And what was the phrase,
aim later.
Aim later, because they're firing people who they then have to hire back. We've seen that, but that's one issue. The other, issue along those lines with executive order is a couple days ago, he signed an executive order, I believe, to ban trans members of the military, which is just a terrible thing to do when you served in the military. The recruiting goals are never being met and the standards have been lowered and lowered over the years. Like, you got a trans person who might be like the smartest, most effective person in their unit, in whatever they're doing in the military, and now they're being kicked out. It's like millions of dollars of investment in that person lost. But on that executive order, I mean, do all those, you covered this, and I really don't know the answer. What is the status of people who are serving in the military who identify as trans?
Well, that's one of the things that, I was talking about with nationwide injunction versus just the 6 plaintiffs,
Yeah.
was the transgender troop lawsuit. And there was an injunction entered by a judge that said these 6 people who are party to this lawsuit cannot be removed from the military. But the Court of Appeals, like I said, there were 2 Trump judges on that 3-judge panel. I think they'll file to have it reheard by the entire panel. But those judges paused that injunction while they waited for the merits of the case. So no court has actually determined whether or not it's unlawful to kick transgender troops out of the military. But while we're waiting to see, the transgender troops wanted to stay in the military, but the Trump appointed judges on the Circuit Court of Appeals have paused that injunction from happening. So that's where we are with the status of that. Right now, they have to all get out of the military, which is weird because usually you want to preserve the status quo while you think about the merits of a case, but not in this particular instance, I guess.
What do you make of the resistance that you're seeing to the Trump administration? I was at Mike Lawler's town hall, almost got kicked out myself. Interviewed the woman in my community who did. That's my district. I don't know if you knew that. But what do you make of the organized resistance, the resistance in general, and what do you make of elected Democrats at every level?
Let's start with the organized resistance. I think it's going great. I think JVL put out a great piece at the Bulwark about what we need to do, which is to organize and not just go to the rallies, but give everybody your email address so we have it on, so we can invite you to the next one and grow and grow and grow until 2026, where we can all descend on DC in a big, massive group and basically dare Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act or something bizarre to say that to grant himself major emergency powers to be able to, I don't know, shoot protesters in the knees or whatever. But that I think is going well. The Tesla takedowns, the April 5th, the hands off, the No Kings. We have one coming up on June 14th, 50501 and Indivisible have been putting on great events. We've had empty chair town halls. You mentioned Mike Lawler's where they actually have people in the chairs at the town halls. They aren't going well for Republicans. So I think that we're on the right track there, as long as we're actually organizing and using these groups to make contact with voters and future protesters. I think that that's going swimmingly. Democratic leadership, there seems to be some stuff going on in the DNC where somebody wants to keep using a super PAC to run primary candidates against Democrats, and some people are being removed. And I'm just like, guys, open your window and look at the weather, because right now there's like a storm outside, and to sit here and fight. We have a very simple, easy message: tax the rich, eat the rich, fuck the rich. This is a class thing, and it's working. You can see that that's where these Tesla rallies and the hands off and the No Kings come from, and the Stop the Oligarchy tour with AOC and Bernie, for example. Those are the clear and obvious winning messages. And I don't understand why folks want to, I don't know, bicker about things that don't matter. I don't know.
Well, you have your way into the DNC. You talk to those people. I hope they'll listen to you. I know a lot of other people do, whether it be on social media or on your several podcasts, your Substack. You're everywhere, and you're doing great work. I appreciate you stopping by here for a few minutes. I always love talking to you. Anything else that you want to plug or say as I wrap it up? Allison, thank you so much for joining me.
I'll just say, go a little easy on the DNC. They're supposed to, and they're committed to staying out of the primary, so the voters can actually decide who the candidates are. And then the DNC is like, after the voters decide who they want to run as their representatives, we'll push those. And that is the message that is at their core. And I think that's why they're having problems with people wanting to run and do these other things. But, but also at the same time, speak out against people who you feel could do more. I've been saying that to Chuck Schumer for a while. He seems to be starting to get the message. Cory Booker did that with his record-breaking speech on the floor. AOC, Max Frost, Jasmine Crockett. We see a lot of really great, the Newark mayor and the representatives in New Jersey. We see a lot of really good stuff happening. And I think we should focus on that and reward that and make that the focus instead of focusing on being mad about what's not happening, but always, always encourage your leadership to do more and to stand up as much as they can. I mean, we don't have a majority in any branch of the government, but we can always speak out.
Very well done and well said. And I appreciate you very much for joining me. Thanks for stopping by, Allison Gill. Go follow her on everything. And I will talk to you soon, Allison. Thank you. I'm going to hit the end stream, but say goodbye to me after.